Hello, I'm Richard Ridge for Broadway World. We're here at Sardi's, and I am sitting with one of my all-time favorite people who work in the theater. He is nominated for Best Actor in a Musical for his incredible performance as Daniel and Mrs. Doubtfire in Mrs. Doubtfire. Please say hello to Rob McClure.
Hello, my friend.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. Sardi's. Fancy.
Pretty fancy, right?
Oh, yeah.
You look dapper as ever.
Thank you. Said smart casual. I wasn't going to wear a tie until I saw the word smart. I was going to do dumb casual.
That's all I ever do is wear a tie because I can't do my hair. So you can do your hair. So I figured I always wear a tie.
Barely.
Oh,
Barely.
You have a great hair.
God.
Listen, tell me what this Tony nomination means for your incredible performance that you gave in Mrs. Doubtfire.
You know, it feels, and I think it feels this way for everyone. It feels larger than our own work. Yeah. It feels like a celebration of triumphing over this insane couple of years, and anyone that's even open to be able to receive a nomination has gone through so much. Because we all know, that this is unlikely, right? When we sign up for a life in the theater, you are signing up for unlikely.
I like that.
You know what I mean? It's just, it's a long shot. It's all a long shot. And then COVID came in and made the long shot even longer. So to be here celebrating this season and these amazing artists and these amazing stories and these amazing storytellers feels just larger than any single one of our performances. Yeah.
But watching you in this show, you have the audience in the palm of your hand from the second you walk out there.
Oh, bless you.
And that's a very rare thing because it doesn't happen all the time in the theater, but I love that synergy between a performer and an audience, and you have that. And what was that like for you in this show?
It's the thing I love most.
Yeah.
I fell in love with theater going to see community theater growing up in New Jersey when I was a teenager. And it was that synergy, that thing, more than anything. Sometimes I worry when I teach a lot. And when I hear people talk about, their story or their journey, and they say, like, the first time I felt that spotlight, or the first time I heard a round of applause, a red flag goes off in the back of my brain that goes, I don't know if you get it. Because it's not about necessarily what you're getting as much as it is what you're giving. Yeah. And then the reciprocation of that energy, that's the thing that I was like, whoa. This is unlike any other medium. This is something that feels ancient and essentially human. And the live storyteller and the live listener and that exchange of energy was the thing that I responded to most. So to hear you say that the thing you feel in Mrs. Doubtfire is that relationship is exactly the thing I'm madly in love with. So that could not mean more to me. It's the thing that this show does so well. It's that they use comedy as a subversive tool to get in and crack you open, and we've been lucky enough to hear hundreds of thousands of stories of people who it got in there and cracked open, and that makes every single second of it worth it.
Okay, because at your closing performance, you read a gorgeous letter on stage, but you have so many of them during this run.
I really do. I have hundreds of letters, and anytime they announce a new show, doesn't matter what it is, but particularly if it's an adaptation of a movie, the first thing people do, because it's Twitter, why? But why though? Like, why though? That's the first thing, right? Why though? Why would you make that a musical? Why though? First of all, you have to find out if it sings, right? Does it sing? And I think our authors found a really great in as to why our story sings with the kids and what the kids are going through. But in terms of why, what is the larger mission statement of Mrs. Doubtfire in the 2022 world? Well, I have hundreds of letters that were in my dressing room, are now in my home, from people and the gamut of the way that our story impacted them. I have a letter from a woman who said that she found out 2 months before coming to see our show that she couldn't have kids. And she's been wanting to broach the subject with her husband but didn't know how, and saw our show, and they had the conversation on the way home from our show and are now adopting. I've had letters from kids who said, my parents told me they were getting divorced 2 days ago. and now I'm seeing it, and I think I'm going to be okay. I have letters from people who, when we were in Seattle, there was a couple, an older couple, 2 women, who came during previews, and then during our week of Christmas performances in Seattle, brought their 14-year-old foster daughter for Christmas, got her tickets, and after curtain call, were going to tell her that they were adopting her on Christmas, and used the message of our show to do. So why? That's why.
Yeah.
My God, that's why. And if we can make you laugh hysterically amidst a pandemic while subversively getting you to crack open in those kind of ways, that's why. My God, that's why. And I'm so very, very proud of it. And I believe in it. I believe in it, and I always did, and I always will, because the people who made this show made it for those people.
Yeah.
The people. And John Baptiste gave a really great speech at the Grammys recently, where he said, art isn't for everybody, but art has a way of finding the people who need it most when they need it most. And I feel like Mrs. Doubtfire did that.
Yeah. And then there's your brilliant performance. We have to talk about this.
Love you.
What a track meet you were
fun.
on in that show. It was
Yeah.
like wild. 1 minute you're Daniel, 1 minute you're Mrs. Doubtfire. Then you're back and forth, and you would do these rapid changes.
Yeah.
And the audience would, every time you came out, would just be hysterical. How did he do that, right?
I mean, that's the cool thing, is that people talk about theater magic. I was thinking about this the other day, that people talk about theater magic, right? Theater magic. The thing I love about theater magic is that it's not magic.
Yeah.
That it's real.
And it's right in front of them.
That it's happening, right? We don't achieve a crossfade in post with editing software.
Yeah.
We achieve a crossfade with an orchestra and a stage manager calling a cue between 5 different technicians, one who is on a fly rail, one who is driving automation downstairs, one who is driving the lighting board, and then we achieve a storytelling crossfade in real time in front of you. That's theater magic. But there's nothing magic about it. There's a bunch of people executing at the top of their game to create the illusion of a crossfade. That's
now,
why
your
it's
crossfade,
magic.
how many people did you have putting you together?
So I had a team of 4, 3 on every change, and then one sort of alternate who would come in on different changes when we needed supplementation. But I did 248 quick changes a week, 31 a show. The longest I had to go from Doubtfire to Daniel was 90 seconds. The shortest was 18 seconds. And it's a head-to-toe, face-to-shoes transformation. And it was really astonishing. And I really owe it to those dressers, the fact that those dressers and Brad Oscar and JG, who became those dressers when I would do that change on stage in front of the audience, which, again, theater magic, right? We show you. We let you see how we're doing it. And yet somehow that makes it even more magical, because what's really cool, and this is what we had on the movie, is that when you watch the movie, that when Daniel Hillard runs in the other room and comes back 18 seconds later, that he went into a trailer for 4 hours. Right? Right?
Yeah, totally.
In
you
the
go
show,
for 8 seconds.
If I have 18 seconds, I have 18 seconds. But what's cool is that the audience knows that I have 18 seconds, and they see the people coming, and they get to sweat with me, and the fact that we pull it off. When we were first designing the prosthetics, I went to this amazing company who builds prosthetics, and I walked in, they had all this work on the wall. They actually had Robin Williams cast on the wall from when they did his prosthetics for the Night at the Museum movies. And so talk about feeling like you're in the right spot, right? So I walked in, and they said, okay, we have plans for this. It's going to be 6 different pieces with adhesive. And I said,
18 seconds?
I have to show you the script. Because what I said to them is, essentially, have you seen the movie? The thing they were pretending it was in the movie, it has to really be.
Yeah.
Like something that he can go, that's what it actually has to be. And they said, well, 8 times a week, and it holds up and can't rip when you take it off. No, because I have to put it back on. And
18 seconds.
18 seconds is the key number. But they designed it. They figured it out, and they built it. And we went through countless iterations of exactly what it should be. And but they figured it out. My God, they figured it out. And again, that's what the audience responds to, is they go, whoa, they're really doing this. And somehow the reality of it is what makes it magical.
The other sensational thing about your performance is, we all knew Robin Williams from the beloved film.
Of course.
You made Daniel your own.
Oh, thank
you.
you.
made Mrs. Doubtfire your own.
Thank you.
I was brought up on this movie, and I've known you, but the point is, I just saw I saw Rob McClure's Mrs. Doubtfire.
I love you for that. I love you for that. I recognize that there is because I had it.
Yeah.
This sort of like unmoving affection for Robin Williams and what he did in that movie, right? Nothing can get in that compartment of your heart that is reserved for that. So I wasn't going to bring my version of his version, because who wants to pay to see that, right? Stay home and watch the movie. But what I was hoping to do is through a different medium, right? The second I start singing, it's a different thing, right? So in a new medium, I was hoping to get you to feel the way I remember him making me feel. That was the level of impression that I was hoping to achieve, you know? It was more an impression of what he did to me than how he sounded or how he moved or what he did or what faces he made or what impressions he did. So that was the thing I was hoping to tap into. And it takes trust. It takes a moment for the audience to go, all right, this thing has been proven by someone else. So prove it.
Bring it on.
But there is a wonderful moment, and it's not always the same moment, where the audience, I can feel the audience go, okay, you can be Mrs. Doubtfire for the next 2.5 hours. Okay. And it's a lot of times it is, you know, but we sort of roller coaster through the tumultuous divorce very quickly in our show. We sort of hit it hard. This family's not working. It's not, and we tell that story in a different way than the film. So very quickly, the musical goes, this is not the movie, right up front, right? So the audience goes like, oh, okay, I have to lean in. This is not just going to be the movie put on stage in front of me. Okay, this is new information. And then that first time I pick up the phone to call Miranda as Mrs. Doubtfire, there's this really cool moment where I lift up the phone and the audience hears the very first, hello. And I swear to you, it's like the hair on the back of my neck stands up, and I can viscerally feel the audience go, okay. You know what I mean? It's this wonderful permission, right? They give me permission to play a character that they love. And once they give me permission, I can take the character anywhere, and they come on the ride. But it is, I respect their hesitance. I do, because I'm as big a fan of that thing as they are. I don't want anybody to break it.
And you earn it.
That's the hope, right?
That's
the hope.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bless you for saying that. Thank you.
8 times a week.
I love you.
Okay, Jerry Zaks.
Come on.
So it's a comic genius, this one, working with a comic genius director. I mean, that had been incredible.
Unbelievable.
To be in the room with him creating your Daniel and Mrs. Doubtfire with Jerry Zaks.
Yeah, because he's the type of guy who directs you by telling you stories of where he learned what he's about to tell you. Right? Yeah. So he says, after you say that line, don't move. Don't move. They're going to laugh. As the crest starts to die of the laugh, that's normally where you would say the next line, don't move. They'll laugh again. And I said, that's like jumping out of a plane without a parachute, because if you wait and they don't laugh, scrambled face and cheese, no thank you, right? So the laugh dies, and you wait, and they laugh again. And I go backstage, and I went, they laughed again. He said, you know why? I was doing the tour of Fiddler on the Roof opposite Zero Mostel, and I did a bit in Zero. That's who you're dealing with, right? So he knows. And if he's the parachute. If Jerry Zaks makes your parachute, the parachute's going to work. You know what I mean? You know, because he helped build the parachute. Yeah. You know, it's a wild thing, and he is when you're doing comedy, he's certainly who you want, sort of shaping it. Oh, yeah. But then he also has the sense to know when someone's playing outside of the comedy math and making magic, a la Peter Bartlett. Jerry Zaks says comedy 2 plus comedy 2 equals comedy 4. And then Peter Bartlett shows up and says, what if it's 7? And Jerry Zaks goes, you made me laugh, so I guess sometimes it's 7. You know what I mean? Like, he has the sense to know that some rules are made to be broken, and if it works, it works. So, because there are some people who live inside those rules to a fault. But Jerry knows. Jerry knows how to surf it. And sharing a room with him. And also, he cannot talk about this art form without crying. Yeah. He cries all the time. If he talks about his family, if he talks about his daughters, I'll give you a story. There's a moment in the middle of Act 1. Doesn't feel like a particularly poignant moment for me. At least it didn't at the moment. So I'm Mrs. Doubtfire. I've just had a moment, the first introduction to my kids, and my oldest daughter gives me huge attitude because she's not interested in a nanny. She wants dad. Why isn't dad here? Who is this crazy old Scottish lady? No. And she gives me severe attitude, right? And there is a moment where she comes up to Mrs. Doubtfire and she says, "Hey, I'm sorry. You were just doing your job." And she said, "Hey, I'm sorry. You were just doing your job." And Jerry said, "Oh, wait, stop." Annalise, who is brilliant. Yeah. He said, "Annalise, don't worry about showing her that you're apologizing. Just apologize and mean it. Because if your dad under there sees his daughter do the right thing," and Jerry started to cry. "Imagine how proud he is under there, watching you, not knowing it's him under there, be such a grown-up." Yeah. And I'm, oh my God, that's something I hadn't even really thought about, that Daniel underneath there is watching his kid grow up and do the right thing. Yeah. That's the eye that's watching you rehearse, that's shaping the story. I mean, I've never felt safer.
Yeah. It's such a great show. I think Mrs. Doubtfire is one of the funniest and one of the most clever and just brilliant musicals. I loved it.
I'm so
the
glad.
The audiences loved it.
For sure.
Yeah.
And they're who it's for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They are who it was for. And I cherish it, and I cherish the fact that it will live on. I know that they're planning a tour. There's a UK production that's about to happen. And I've seen what it has to offer. Yeah. And I've seen it land on hearts and minds in a really profound way. And I will always be proud of having gotten to do that 8 times a week on Broadway. And in a weird way, the sort of unique point of view that this show had about love and how far you'd go for your loved ones is something that kept me going through the pandemic, right? Yeah. I'm at home for 18 months going, is my show going to come back? Is my show going to come back? Am I sitting here waiting for this damn pandemic to press pause or go away so that I can tell this story again? How far would I go to be with that company again, to be with those kids again, to be with the Hillard family, to do the thing I love again in the place I love to do it again? I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to stick with it. And we came back, we went away, we came back, we went away, we came back, and now finally are going away. But man, talk about having a story to tell that fuels me with the reason to show up and do it again every time, you know? So in a weird way, if it was a different show, I think the pandemic would have been even harder. But this group of people and this story in particular are the story I want to have been telling during this. Yeah.
Because my final question, I think you just answered a lot of it, was like, you were part of the season when Broadway came back. Because those 2 years were so horrible for everybody. Yeah. I mean, I used to walk the streets and cry practically all the markets. Oh, yeah. I know what was going to happen to our lives. And we loved what we do. We work in the theater. We don't work in something else.
That's right.
And it was taken away, but you were one of the first shows to open during, to get Broadway up. The lights were open again at your beautiful theater, and you got to do it. You shut down, but you opened again. Yeah. And you got to do it. So what did that mean to you, and what does this Tony nomination mean to you?
There are a couple of things that are going to stay with me forever. Yeah. That being one of the first shows back, certainly. Being the show in the Stephen Sondheim Theater when Stephen Sondheim passed away. That's going to stick with me forever. And I feel like you and I share this sentiment. Early on in the pandemic, maybe within the first 6 months or year, there were a lot of headlines about, is the theater dead? Is the theater gone? And I feel like every couple of years that conversation comes up. Theater is just for ancient subscribers. Really? Come look at these TKTS lines. Yeah. Come look at the student rush lines around the buildings. Come look. Go on TikTok and search hashtag my musical, my high school's musical. Hell, look hashtag legally blonde and tell me that this is a dying art form. It's thriving. It's exploding. There are people every day falling as madly in love with it as you and I did. And we knew that. Yeah. When we saw those headlines, we went, are you crazy? Theater will outlive COVID. I promise. People have been telling stories to each other and it having an impact on them in live performance and live venues, big and small, for all of human history. The notion that somehow, COVID. That's why people in their homes were like, can I use my laptop to make theater? They would figuring out any way to tell stories in a way that felt theatrical again. And they did. They came up with some really innovative things, but we all know deep down, getting back to the beginning of our conversation, it's that exchange of energy in the same room. And it was that collective humanity, that very energy that COVID stole from us. So every show that is brave enough to show up anyway, with producers brave enough to bring that much money to the table, to try and play this insane game we're playing where we walk into the theater every day and we spit into these damn tubes every day, and we don't know if those tubes are going to tell us that we can't come back to work for 10 days. It's an insane time to be doing this. So anyone doing it is heroic because it's never been harder.
Yeah.
So the fact that I get to be a part of such a brave season for just attempting to make it happen. When I look around Radio City on the 12th, that's what I'm going to see. Some of the bravest storytellers I've ever had the pleasure of working with or working nearby. And because it's insane right now. But we do it anyway.
Yeah.
Because theater's not dead.
Well, I have to tell you, you were, I think, my first live interview back, and I said, there's no way we're going to get Rob McClure. I said, he's still in previews. The show's changing every day. And I got to interview outside the Stephen Sondheim, and I felt like $1 million of like, oh my God, this is what I do.
Yeah, we're back, right?
We're back.
We're back.
And, you know, you were between a matinee and an evening.
Mm.
And you did it, and I was like...
Well, because there are, you know... Remember the why voices I was talking about before?
Yeah.
Why? You are the anti-why. You're a beacon of everything I love about this, right? You sit us down and you go, how's it going? How's it going? Are you good? Is your show good? How's everybody? How are the fans liking it? How is it working out? I've never once ever felt your heart root against someone attempting to make art.
Yeah.
Ever. And that's the reason why between shows on a 2-show day during previews, I go, Richie wants to talk to me outside the theater. All right.
And then you ran to dinner.
Oh, yes!
And you just had notes.
I got soup and I chucked it down and did the second show because I recognize in you someone who gets it.
Yeah.
And I love you for it.
I adore you. I always have.
Back at you.
I wish you the very best next Sunday. He gave one of the best performances of this season, or any performance,
Thank
or
you so
any
much.
season of doing what you do up there. And you make magic, and you have the audience in the palm of their hand, and that's what you do.
I love you.
I love you more.
See you soon.
See you soon.